Welcome back, everybody. Ready for another deep dive?
Always ready to dive in.
Well, today we're going somewhere pretty amazing.
Sounds good.
A story about faith and sorrow and finding joy, even when things are, well, incredibly tough.
Those are some pretty big topics.
Yeah, no kidding. And the story comes from Elder S. Mark Palmer. He gave a talk called "Our Sorrow Shall Be Turned into Joy" back in April of 2021.
At General Conference.
Right. And you know what I love about this talk?
What's that?
It's deeply personal, but it also connects to some really core beliefs of his faith.
The kind of stuff that makes you think about life and death and what might come after, you know?
Exactly. And it all starts with this simple but really powerful story. Elder Palmer was meeting with President Russell M. Nelson, and President Nelson just casually mentions that he's certain he'll see Elder Palmer's mother again in the next life.
Wow. Like it was just a given.
Right. Not some big dramatic statement, just matter of fact.
Like something you'd say about meeting for lunch next week.
Almost. And it really highlights this idea that death isn't the end, it's just a transition.
Do another state of existence.
Exactly. And that's such a fundamental belief in this faith, the idea of life after death.
It's fascinating, isn't it? I mean, have you ever wondered what happens after we die?
Of course. That's one of those big mysteries, right?
And this story offers a glimpse into how one faith tradition approaches that mystery.
But it gets even more interesting when you consider the context.
Oh, what do you mean?
Well, this whole conversation happened during General Conference.
Right.
And that year, the focus was on the testimonies of apostles and prophets about the resurrection of Jesus Christ.
Ah, I see where you're going with this.
It all ties together. The resurrection is central to this whole concept of sorrow being turned into joy.
It suggests that death, while sorrowful, isn't the final word.
Right. There's something more to come. And we see this echoed in the story of the Apostle Thomas, you know.
The one who doubted Jesus' resurrection.
Yeah. He wouldn't believe it until he saw Jesus with his own eyes. But then Jesus says to him, "Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed."
Powerful stuff. It's a statement about faith, isn't it?
It sure is. About believing even without physical proof.
So how does faith bridge that gap, the gap between what we see and what we choose to believe?
That's the question, isn't it?
And what does this story tell us about the very essence of faith? Does it demand blind acceptance, or can it coexist with questioning and doubt?
Big questions. And they become even more poignant when you hear about Elder Palmer's personal story. He goes on to share this heartbreaking experience from his childhood.
Oh, no.
His parents were sheep farmers in New Zealand, and they lost their 17-month-old daughter, Anne, in a drowning accident.
Oh, my goodness. Just devastating.
To lose a child so young, I can't even imagine. It's the kind of loss that shakes you to your core.
It makes you question everything.
Exactly. And that's precisely what happened to Elder Palmer's parents. They were in such deep grief, they just desperately wanted to find meaning, answers to those big questions about life and death.
I think we've all had moments like that, haven't we? Maybe not as profound, but times when we question everything.
Yeah, for sure. Those moments when you wonder about the meaning of it all, your place in the universe.
And for Elder Palmer's parents, that search led them to a life-changing encounter.
What happened?
2 missionaries from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints knocked on their door.
Wow. At a moment of such vulnerability, almost like something out of a movie.
And these missionaries introduced them to the Book of Mormon and some of their core teachings.
Like what?
Things like life in the spirit world after death, the promise of resurrection, the concept of eternal families. It seems Elder Palmer's mother was immediately drawn to this message. It offered her comfort, a glimmer of hope.
So she was ready to jump right in.
You could say that. But her husband? Well, he struggled. He wrestled with doubt, this resistance to change. For a whole year, he just couldn't fully accept what the missionaries were teaching.
A whole year of inner turmoil.
It seems so.
So what changed? How did he finally take that leap of faith?
Well, it seems like he had this particularly restless night.
Oh boy.
And the next morning, he just announces, "I will be baptized today or never."
Wow. That's intense.
Talk about a turning point.
It makes you think about what faith really is. It's not always about instant understanding or a lack of doubt, right?
No, sometimes it's a choice, a deliberate step into the unknown because you're yearning for something more.
And he followed through, didn't he?
Yeah.
He didn't let those doubts hold him back.
He jumped right in. The whole family was baptized right there on the beach. It's such a powerful image, isn't it?
It really is.
And that was just the beginning.
There's more.
A year later, they went to the temple in Hamilton, New Zealand.
the one that had just been dedicated.
That's right. And there they were sealed as an eternal family, including their daughter, Anne.
That idea of being united with loved ones, even after death, it's just so powerful.
It really is.
Yeah.
A central belief in their faith, emphasizing that family relationships go beyond this mortal life.
And for a family that had experienced such a profound loss, it must have been incredibly comforting, incredibly healing. Years later, Elder Palmer was reflecting on his father's journey and realized that the sorrow, that terrible loss, actually opened his father up to faith. It was like his humility, born from that pain, allowed him to embrace something new.
That's amazing. Sometimes our greatest trials can lead to the most unexpected transformations.
It really makes you think about the potential for growth, the twists and turns that faith can take. And their experience didn't end there. Their lives, their transformed lives, touched so many others, even generations to come.
It's like a ripple effect. Our choices, our beliefs, they can have a lasting impact.
It's a reminder that we're all connected. We leave a legacy behind, whether we realize it or not.
It's true. Our lives have a way of touching others, shaping the world around us in ways we may never fully understand.
You know, it's funny. We started with this simple anecdote about President Nelson and Elder Palmer's mother, but it's taken us to some pretty deep places.
It has, hasn't it? That's the beauty of these deep dives, I guess.
You never know where they'll lead you.
That's for sure. And we're not done yet.
You know, it's pretty incredible how one family's experience with grief ended up impacting so many lives.
Yeah, really makes you think.
But I keep coming back to that moment when Elder Palmer's dad finally decided to be baptized.
Right, after a whole year of wrestling with it all.
What do you think finally clicked for him? I mean, what was it about those teachings, especially in the midst of all that pain, that made him take that step?
Well, he obviously was going through a lot, right? A whole year of doubts and resistance.
Yeah.
But something must have resonated deeply. Maybe the hope of seeing his daughter again?
Possibly.
Or maybe it was about finding meaning in the face of such a senseless tragedy. Who knows?
It's interesting, though, how Elder Palmer talked about his dad's struggle. He didn't frame it as a weakness or anything. It was more like a testament to his sincerity, you know.
Right.
He didn't just blindly accept everything he was told.
He wrestled with it, thought it through.
Exactly. And ultimately came to his own conclusions.
It reminds us that faith isn't always about blind acceptance.
Right.
It can be a process of working through doubts, asking tough questions.
And finding your own personal conviction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And sometimes that takes time.
It's a journey.
It really is. Not just an instant conversion experience.
It makes you wonder about the role of sorrow in shaping our beliefs.
Interesting thought.
Elder Palmer said that his dad's humility, the humility came from their loss. That's what opened him up to faith.
There could be a connection there, couldn't there?
Do you think profound sorrow can pave the way for spiritual growth?
It's certainly a possibility. When you're confronted with how fragile life is, how little we really understand, it might make you more open to different perspectives, to looking for something bigger than yourself.
Makes sense.
It can make you question your assumptions.
And consider things you might have dismissed before.
Right. Makes you think outside the box.
You know, we've talked about the Apostle Thomas a bit,
Sure have.
and his story often comes up in discussions about faith and doubt.
It's a classic.
But I feel like there's a lot more to it than meets the eye.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think Jesus meant when he said, "Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed"?
That's a good question.
What's the deeper message there about faith itself?
Well, it seems like it's saying that true faith goes beyond just physical evidence, you know?
Okay.
It's about having faith in something larger than yourself.
Right.
Even when you can't fully grasp it with your senses or logic.
It's about embracing the mystery,
That's a good way to put it, accepting that there are things we may never fully understand.
which is kind of a radical idea these days, don't you think?
How so?
Well, we're constantly bombarded with information. Everything has to have an explanation, you know?
Yeah, you've got a point.
But this idea of embracing the mystery, it goes against that whole mindset.
Challenges us to step outside our comfort zones, to be okay with not knowing everything.
And to be open to possibilities that might be beyond our current understanding.
Absolutely. It's about pushing those boundaries.
So how do we cultivate that kind of faith? Does it just happen? Or can we actively develop it?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
Sometimes life throws curveballs at you, things that shake you up and make you question everything.
Yeah, those tough moments.
And those moments can actually push you to grow spiritually, to search for answers.
Like a wake-up call.
Exactly. But you can also cultivate faith more intentionally.
Like how?
through things like meditation, quiet contemplation, being part of a community that shares your values.
So it's a combination of life experiences and conscious effort.
That's how I see it.
It's a journey, that's for sure.
And Elder Palmer's story suggests it's a journey worth taking, even if it starts with sorrow.
Because in the end, his message is about hope.
Hope and resilience.
Finding joy even in the midst of pain.
It's a powerful message.
It's interesting how that works, right? That even in our darkest moments, there can be these sparks of light.
Yeah, it's like a paradox.
Seeds of hope that can grow into something amazing.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
And this idea that even when things are tough, there's always a possibility of redemption, of finding meaning in our experiences.
It's a message that resonates across cultures throughout history.
Because deep down, we all want to believe that, don't we?
I think so.
That our lives aren't just defined by our circumstances, but by how we choose to respond to them.
Exactly. We have the power to choose.
And Elder Palmer's story is a powerful example of how faith can give us strength and resilience,
Helping us get through tough times.
and leading us to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world.
That's the goal, isn't it?
It all comes back to that image of President Nelson
Yeah.
just casually saying he'll see Elder Palmer's mother again in the next life. Like he's saying, don't worry, this isn't the end. There's so much more to come.
Such a comforting thought.
And it challenges us to think about the possibility of something beyond our earthly experience.
Right. To open our minds to a different kind of reality.
A reality where sorrow can be turned into joy, where relationships continue, where the mysteries of life and death find resolution.
A lot to ponder there.
It's an invitation to look beyond what we can see, to embrace the unknown.
And to trust in something bigger than ourselves.
Elder Palmer's story is pretty amazing, isn't it? It weaves together personal experience, theological ideas, and this whole theme of hope and resilience.
Yeah, it's not just about one family, is it?
No, it speaks to something much bigger.
It really does.
We all experience grief. We all question life and death. We all want to find something that gives us hope.
It's a universal story.
It's like their family's journey becomes a reflection of the human experience.
And what's interesting is how Elder Palmer talks about faith.
What do you mean?
Well, he doesn't pretend it's always easy, does he?
No, not at all.
He acknowledges his dad's skepticism, that whole year of doubt. It's not some simplistic everything happens for a reason narrative.
Right.
It's a genuine search for truth, a process of questioning and ultimately making a choice to believe.
And that's what makes it so relatable, I think.
Absolutely. For most of us, faith isn't a straight line.
There are bumps in the road.
Exactly. Detours, roadblocks, times when you're not sure what to believe.
But like Elder Palmer's story shows, those doubts, they don't invalidate your journey.
No, they can actually make it more meaningful.
It's about embracing the questions, the uncertainties.
Yeah, and letting them deepen your understanding.
Recognizing that faith doesn't mean having all the answers.
It's more about a willingness to trust, to keep searching, even when you don't have it all figured out.
And to remember that our choices, those leaps of faith we take,
They can have a much bigger impact than we realize.
like ripples spreading out.
Exactly. Just like Elder Palmer's parents, their decision to be baptized didn't just change their lives.
It affected their kids, their grandkids, future generations.
It's a powerful reminder that we're all connected.
Our actions, our beliefs, they all matter.
We leave a mark on the world whether we see it or not.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Elder Palmer's story,
Yeah.
what are some key takeaways for our listeners?
Well, I think the biggest one is this idea that faith can be a source of strength.
Especially when things get tough,
Right. It's not about pretending that pain doesn't exist.
or denying the realities of life,
No, it's about finding a way to navigate those challenges with hope.
and a sense of purpose.
And also recognizing that faith is a journey, not a destination.
You're always learning, always growing,
Exactly. Asking questions, being open to the mystery of it all.
and being open to the possibility of something greater than ourselves,
Absolutely. Finding what speaks to your heart.
and letting those beliefs guide you.
And, maybe most importantly,
What's that?
remembering that even in the midst of sorrow, there's always potential for joy, for growth, for transformation.
Like a seed planted in the darkness.
Beautiful imagery.
Just as Elder Palmer's family found solace in their faith, we can find ways to cultivate hope and resilience in our own lives.
No matter what challenges we face.
Well said. Well, that about wraps up our deep dive for today.
It's been a fascinating journey.
It really has. Thanks for joining us, everyone. We hope Elder Palmer's story has given you something to think about.
And maybe even inspired you to keep exploring your own beliefs and values.
Until next time, Keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.